Hi guys, Chris here, back with the Xiaomi Mi Mix 3. This is a follow-up video, 1 week later, a week of using the Xiaomi Mi Mix 3, and I'm going to cover a few things that I missed out on my first video. The first video was only after just a couple of days of using the phone, so this now I've used for quite a while, and I'm finding that it's a really good phone. I want to cover a couple of things with the phone too. The screen, really nice, so no problems with this AMOLED panel. It's very bright. Really good brightness on here. Now, as you can see, I've switched over to the full screen gestures on this, and sadly, I have actually noticed from time to time you will actually get a little bit of full screen gesture lag that sometimes comes through. I was seeing this a lot on MIUI 9.6, and sadly, it's still on MIUI 10. Now, when it normally happens is if you're not using the phone for a while, so imagine you unlock. Now, if you wanted to unlock using the face unlock, you always have to slide down for that with the front-facing cameras. So imagine that unlocks, and then you decide that I'm going to go to recent apps, or you're going to swipe up and go home. Then you might see a tiny little bit of stutter there. Now, there were a lot of comments and people asking, how does the case work with the slider? So they have to make a gap here at the bottom, and that's how it works. And I mean, a few comments too, people asking me about this gap. Now, there is a little gap between the slider. That's about 1 millimeter. And that doesn't really bother me. There's a tiny gap there. That has to be there, I think. It's just the way it is, the design, the slider mechanism on that. So I'm perfectly fine with it. The only thing that bothers me sometimes a little bit is that when you're playing a game, for example, and you happen to press just up and down here, with the case on, it doesn't happen. So the case completely stops this. But if the case wasn't on it, get a tiny little bit of play just on the edges. So the screen wobbles a little bit, but it's only about 1 millimeter, and it's really not a big issue at all. Now, one of the things I mentioned with the case when I did the unboxing is it just feels a little bit cheap, and it's not up to the same quality as the case that you got with the original Mix and then the Mi Mix 2 and the 2S. And they've gone with a plastic that's a little bit thinner. And I think the reason is because of the wireless charging. They don't want it to inhibit the charging, so it's not going to be a problem with that. So that's probably why they went with a thinner case with this. Now, it doesn't actually give you protection with the camera here. I thought it did. But when you lie it flat, it's at about the same exact level as the camera lens here. Now, this is covered with glass at least, but putting it down on a table, and if you move that around a little bit, then you could end up scratching the lens. Now, in hand, the phone feels great, but I do have a little bit of a complaint with this case that if you happen to just squeeze either side of it, you sometimes hear a little bit of a creak, so there is a tiny little bit of flex and movement with that case. So if any dust or grains of imagine sand or something like that got in there, then it would end up probably scratching around a little bit there. And of course, if you happen to get something in between in the slider, then perhaps that could scratch. But the slider mechanism, after a week of use, it feels great, and I like the way it works. Now, a lot of questions too. People have been asking me, okay, if I happen to have the Mi Mix 2 or the 2S, should I upgrade? Now, if you're coming from the 2, for example, Mi Mix 2S, that one there, I don't think you really need to upgrade at all with this phone. The only reason to go for the newer model, this one, of course, the Mi Mix 3, not for the chip, not for the battery life, is probably for the improved selfie cam. Now, this camera with its 24 megapixels is a big step up over the likes of the Mi Mix 2S. So you don't have to flip the phone around anymore, of course, you just have to slide it up. Now, I don't take a lot of selfies, so I don't really actually see this camera a lot. I normally just take selfies for my reviews, and the odd occasional one here and there. It does have a front-facing LED flash in here as well, and we do have that secondary 2 megapixel camera. Now, here's a sample. Now, this sample, in fact, I showed you with the unboxing video, but if you have a look at the details that this can capture when you zoom in, that it's really good. And a greatly improved front-facing camera here with the Mi Mix 3. So that is probably the best reason if you want a better selfie cam and you already have, or you're choosing between the Mi Mix 2S and then this model, that's why you would go for this model right here for the improved selfie cam if that's what you need. Otherwise, they do look very similar. When you look at the back of them, you've got the ceramic on here. Now, the biggest thing for me with these phones here is the weight. So this is slightly heavier. It's about 25-30 grams heavier than your typical flagship. It is also a little bit thicker. Now, I go over the thickness of this. That it's up to about 9 millimeters with the camera bump and around about 8 or so, or what was it, 8.1, I think. So it's a slightly thicker mobile phone compared to most flagships out there. But the main thing is the weight of it. Now, in terms of build quality, it is really good. But I feel that the Mi Mix 2S just has a better build to it because you don't have the slider there. So you're not having this more susceptible lip around here. Now, this is a metal frame that does go around the screen. So that is fine. But I can just imagine that it would probably break a little bit easier on the screen around here than say the Mi Mix 2S. Not only that, the Mix 2S is of course a little bit thinner and a slightly lighter as well. It's still a heavy phone, but it's not quite as heavy as this one here. Now, I'll follow up with the camera. I have been using it quite a bit. I've been out and about. I've also been to a couple of days out and things. I took a few photos of a steam locomotive here. Yes, it's dressed up as Thomas the Tank Engine, but I was taking my daughter along there. And you can see it takes a really good photo. But what I have noticed that with this camera, when you use the 2x camera, which I think is almost 2x optical, but a little bit of digital perhaps in there as well, that it often overexposes, not oversaturates, overexposes. You can see the images look a little bit white with some of these examples here. But then again, most of the time actually it will take a very decent photo. Just a couple more samples here because people pointed out in my first video, the unboxing, that it wasn't perfect lighting conditions, but it wasn't daylight in some of the photos. It was getting a little bit overcast. But here with these images you can see it does take a very decent photo, so about the same level really as the Mi 8 or the Mi Mix 2S. It is, after all, using the same camera setup. Now, battery life was something that I was a little concerned about in the beginning because it's got a smaller battery. Smaller than most other flagships, 3,200 milliamp hours. It's not exactly huge now when paired up with the Snapdragon 845, but this screen is much more efficient. Now, in the beginning, I did run into this problem here that caused me to actually move my files off the phone, do a factory reset, and reinstall Google Play Store. You can see right here that it was using a whopping huge 46% of my battery, and I struggled to make it through a full day. I was using the phone a lot. This is very heavy use. And when you looked at my screen on time here, I managed to get only 4.5 hours, and that was when I was at 29% battery. So I was getting a little bit worried in terms of battery life. It was not looking good. However, as I said, I did a factory reset and I reinstalled Google Play, and this is more normal here now. You can see the YouTube was the main user because I was doing a lot of YouTube streaming, watching a bit of YouTube, Chrome as well, and Google Play was only using then 3% of my battery, which makes sense. So my normal day's use here, screen was 30% when you look at hardware. And then check it out, really impressive time here considering the battery capacity. 8 hours of some very demanding use. Now I kept my screen brightness on a manual setting, which was calibrated to about 250 lux. So I left it at that. I could have gone less, and I could have of course gone with a brighter screen, but 8 hours, remember this is an estimated use, my own personal use here. So 8 hours for me is impressive and really good considering the battery capacity. So it just goes to show that they've done some optimization, and to me it's probably because of the AMOLED panel that the battery life is so good here. What else is impressive is the wireless charging times and also the cable charging time. So just plugging in normal, it's 1 hour and 29 minutes. That was from 5% battery, so really quick to charge. That's only using 18 watts, that's Qualcomm's Quick Charge 3, and then wireless charging also is super quick. So this only took 2 hours and 2 minutes. That's the 10 watt wireless charger that's included in the box, which is great to have. So super quick. That charges as fast as other phones that would charge using the cable, of course. So wireless charging in just over 2 hours, around 2 hours, to me is absolutely brilliant. And I won't be using the cable with this at all because that is super quick. So there we go. For me, this is overall a very good phone. It is a decent phone considering the price. Really great. So it's got great battery life. It'll charge super fast, both wirelessly and with the cable. That's one thing that really did surprise me. And of course, that battery life, getting 8 hours of screen on time, I did not expect this. I expected maybe about 6.5, 7. I thought around that kind of figure, even though I did say, I know in my unboxing, 7 to 8 hours. And it was good to see that actually that came true. So the screen is very nice, and the UI is, for the most part, fluid. You just occasionally, as mentioned, will see now and then just a couple of little stutters when you go swipe up, there, go home. And that is only just after a while. So if you haven't done that for a while, gone home, or you've just been switching over to other apps, is the only time that is going to really happen. So hopefully Xiaomi's going to finally fix that. The other thing that does annoy me a little bit is the audio quality in video. It's still not there. Xiaomi still can't seem to get that right. It seems to be a little bit too high with the trebles. And that is me, yes, being maybe a little bit fussy there, nitpicking with that. The overexposure on the second zoom camera there is something that, of course, that can be addressed with software. So hopefully they're just going to be able to tweak that back a little bit. But overall, it takes a really good photo. The fingerprint unlocking is really quick. I know it doesn't have the one that everyone thought it would probably be coming with in the screen, which would have been nice, but they often tend to be a little bit slower. Now, face unlocking, yes, that's possible. I'll just do that again, but you have to, of course, swipe down to get that front-facing camera, and it is really quick, but I don't think it is very secure on this mobile. You could probably hold up a photo of your face, and it would unlock there. So all round, you get that nice slider mechanism on there. And yes, there is a little bit of play, as I mentioned there in the unboxing video, my first hands-on with this phone. A little thicker, a little heavier, but all round, you can't really go wrong with this phone. And yes, if you are looking between the Mi Mix 2S and then this phone, like I mentioned, it all depends if you want a better selfie cam. That, to me, is really the only reason to go for this one. Otherwise, stick with, well, okay, better screen too. I almost forgot that. Yes, you get a much better screen on this, the bezels and everything, but if you want that better selfie cam as well, then that's the main reason to go for this, I feel, if you're going to be upgrading. Otherwise, the IPS panel that is on the Mi Mix 2S is not bad. Thanks a lot for watching this follow-up second part of my review of Xiaomi's Mi Mix 3.